All right, conjugation of Latin verbs. There's a couple of main concepts that we need to talk about with verbs. We're going to start really high level. This first couple of things you kind of need to understand, but they're not directly related to what we're going to be doing. Okay? They just help you talk intelligently about verbs and understand when I present things. Right? Couple of things with verbs. One, a verb has person. And there are three persons. They're very simply called first person, second person, third person. You already know first and third person from literature. First person means your primary pronoun is going to be I if it's singular or we if it's plural. Third person means your primary pronoun is going to be he or she if it's singular or they if it's plural. Second person then is going to be if it's you if it's singular. In English, you is also plural, but we're going to use y'all to help distinguish between the singular you and the plural you. Okay, so first, second, or third person. Verbs also have number. Very simple. They can be singular or they can be plural. These two things combined give you 6 possibilities. First person singular, second singular, third singular, first plural, second plural, third plural. I, you, he or she or it, we, y'all, they. Verbs have tense. And all tense means is time. They tell us when something happens. Latin has 6 tenses like English. Now, the 6 tenses in English are different than the 6 in Latin. English has a present, a past, a future, a present perfect, a past perfect, and a future perfect. Latin has a present, an imperfect, a perfect, a future, a present perfect, a pluperfect, and a future perfect. Concepts that you won't need this year, but big picture things. Verbs have voice. That voice is either active or passive. That refers to the relationship between the subject and the verb. In an active sentence, which is most sentences in most languages, in an active sentence, the subject does the verb. I study Latin. In a passive sentence, the verb happens to the subject. Latin is studied by students. Your subject is Latin. Latin isn't studying, it's being studied. But that's relatively rare, and especially in English, it's out of favor. You will not see passive very often in English. In Latin, passive is the big idea for Latin 2. We will only use active in Latin 1. And then there's moods, and Latin has 2 of them, indicative and subjunctive. Indicative is, again, most sentences in most languages are in the indicative, which is just used when you are either stating facts or you're talking about information as if it was a fact. Subjunctive is going to be for wants and wishes and dreams and quotations, certain other odd things. In Latin 1, you will only use indicative. Actually, in Latin 2, you will also only use indicative. Subjunctive is the big idea for Latin 3. All right. Hopefully this picks up right where we left off. Subjects, and it's going to cover that bottom one, which says they. So you'll have to make sure you've noted it. Your subjects are I, you, he, she, or it, but we're always going to use he by default. We, y'all, make sure you get that apostrophe in there. If you don't put that apostrophe in its learning, it's going to mark it wrong. And they. So I and we are singular and plural of first person. You and y'all, singular and plural second person. And then he and they, singular and plural third person. For 3 of your activities today, that's actually going to be your answers. Your answer is just going to be I, or y'all, or you, or they. It's going to be very simple, but we'll get to it. In Latin, here's your subjects. You won't need them very much. We won't use these very often at all. In fact, these ones, isea, id, and ai, ai, we won't use those at all. These ones very rarely. So what does a verb entry look like? You remember that a noun entry had 4 parts. It had a nominative singular, a genitive singular, a gender, and an English. Well, a verb entry is going to have 5 parts. We're very creative in the naming. They have a first principal part, a second principal part, a third principal part, a fourth principal part, and then English. It's a very creative naming. So real quickly, let's talk about principal parts. The first principal part is always going to end in the letter O. Now, there's an asterisk there. There are actually 2 irregular verbs where it ends with an M. But every other verb in the Latin language, it ends with an O. You don't need to worry about the irregulars right now. Okay? It is the first person singular present tense form of the verb. If you've had Spanish 1, that makes it the present tense yo form. When you are trying to say, I am doing something, the first principal part is the correct answer to say, I am doing whatever the verb is. Okay? And so it'll translate as I am verbing or I verb. English has 2 ways to do that. It doesn't matter. Okay? With verb being whatever variable, I am studying or I study. I am talking or I talk. I am sleeping or I sleep. Whatever. Okay? The second principal part always ends with a vowel, an R, and an E. Now, I've used this diamond here because there's 3 different vowels that could go here. Actually, there's 4 different vowels that could go there, sort of. But it's always going to be a vowel right there. And so you need to make sure that you pay attention that it is 3 letters. Don't skip that diamond. Don't say, oh, I don't remember what that diamond is. I'm just going to ignore it. No, that diamond is a variable. It's a vowel. You'll see the pattern in a minute. Okay? This is the present infinitive form of the verb, and it's going to mean to verb. Okay? So if your verb is study, then the first principal part would mean I am studying. The second principal part would mean to study. Okay? It cannot happen in a sentence for right now. Later on, there will be a way it could be in a sentence when we do a complementary infinitive. But for right now, the second principal part is going to be the basic form. It's going to be where you start to do everything else, but you cannot end there. Okay? Third principal part always ends with an I. Regular verbs, irregular verbs, every verb, it always ends in an I. And it's the perfect tense form. It's your simple past tense form. So it's just going to be an I verb. So first principal part, I am studying, or I study. Second principal part, to study. Third principal part, I studied. And then the fourth principal part always ends in a US or a UM. Those are interchangeable. The US would be the masculine form of it. UM will be the neuter form of it. It just depends on which dictionary you're using, which one they give you as the default. Yeah. It's a perfect passive participle. We will not use it in Latin 1. If you are planning on taking Latin 2, learn it now, because everything in Latin 2 revolves around it. It's super important in Latin 2, so you need to know what they are. So when you learn a new verb, you need to just learn it as amo, amare, amavi, amatus, to love. Even though you won't use amatus in Latin 1, you will in Latin 2, and so you'll need to know it. Okay? It would mean I am being verb. So in our example of study, it would be I am being studied. But as I said, we will not use it at all in Latin 1, but it'll be presented to you because you need to know it in Latin 2. All right, conjugations. We talked with nouns about declensions, and you've seen 3 of them so far. I mentioned that there are 5 total. You've seen 3 so far. A conjugation is the same as a declension, only it's verbs. So a declension is a family of nouns that behave the same as each other. A conjugation is a family of verbs that behave the same as each other. Okay? And there's 4 1/2 of them. We'll talk about what I mean by the half in just a moment. If you've had Spanish, Spanish has 3 of them, AR, ER, IR. Okay? Latin, the first one we call first conjugation. It's words where the first principal part ends in O and the second principal part ends in ARE. It has to do both. So if you look here, amo, amare, amavi, amatus. This one ends in O, that ends in ARE, so this is first conjugation. Second conjugation, it's going to end EO and long ERE. That long mark is important. It's the only one that's important. You will see on some of these verb slides and other places there are other long marks that could happen on verbs. They don't matter. This one does. Second conjugation, second principal part must have a long E. Okay, so moneo, monere, monoi, monitus, to warn. EO, long ERE, that tells you this is second. Okay, third, it's back to being just an O here, like in first, but it's a short ERE. Duco, ducere, duxi, ductus. Okay, so O, short ERE. Long ERE is second, short ERE is third. Here's our half, and I'll explain the half in a minute, but let's just keep going for a moment. is going to end I-O short E-R-E. We call this third I-O. It's third because it ends E-R-E here, I-O because it ends I-O here. So facio, facere, feci, factus. There are not very many of these verbs, but it's some very common verbs. Facio is one of the more common ones, as is cupio, cupere, cupi, cupitus, meaning to desire. Those two are very common here. Okay? And then fourth conjugation is I-O, like third I-O, and I-R-E, audio, audire, audivi, auditus, to hear. The deal with third I-O, it is third because it ends E-R-E. And E-R-E means, short E-R-E means it has to be third. However, what it wants more than anything in life is to be a fourth. So, third I-O is going to follow the rules of fourth anytime that it can. And if third does one thing and fourth does something different, these third I-O verbs are going to do what fourth does. But they are stuck being third because they have this short E-R-E here, which tells you that it's third. So they're wannabes. They are threes, but they want to be fours and act like fours. But that's why it's only a half, because there's not really anything new here. And third I-O doesn't do anything new, it just acts like four, even though it looks like three sometimes. That's all that is saying. That's all that's about. All right. Here's another way to look at the same thing I just presented to you. If that made sense to you just now, then don't worry about this. But this is just showing that you have to have an O and an ARE to be first, an EO and a long ERE to be second. We said this long mark doesn't matter, but this one does, right? It has to have an O and a short ERE to be third, IO and short ERE to be third IO, and IO IRE to be fourth. So this slide and the previous slide are actually just duplicates of each other, just presented two different ways in case you need to see it that way, because this is really important. Yeah? So always four principal parts. The first principal part is the same as the ego. It's the same as the I form in the present tense. That means it's going to be a freebie. Anytime we're asking you, how do you say I am doing something, the first principal part is going to be your answer. All right? Now, take a moment. You should be able to identify what conjugation each of these things are. Now, I would recommend pause the video right now and identify them, because I'm about to give you the answers, but you should do it on your own first, right? So pause it now. Yeah? But amo, amare would be first conjugation. O-A-R-E. Audio, audire. I-O, I-R-E. That's fourth. Dokeo, dokere. E-O, long E-R-E, that's your characteristic for second. Clamo, clamare, there's your O-A-R-E again, like up here, so that's first. Kuro, kurere, you got a short E-R-E, O, short E-R-E is your pattern for third. Lego, legere, again, that's your pattern for third, O, short E-R-E. Dormio, dormire, I-O, I-R-E, that's your pattern for fourth, like here, audio, audire. Facio, facere, there's your mixed one, right? It's got that I-O in the beginning, but then it ends like a third, because this is a third I-O. That's why we call it third I-O. Regular third here, third I-O there, it just ends with an I-O, but both times it's short ERE. Okay, that's all that means. All right, so conjugation. Here we get to the nuts and bolts. This is pretty easy. All right. The first thing is you remove the infinitive ending. You look at that second principal part and you remove the vowel, the R, and the E from the end of it. Whatever's left is your stem. Okay? You remove three letters, a vowel, an R, and an E. Yeah? Remember that diamond represents a vowel. You've already seen now, if it's first conjugation, it's going to be an A, A-R-E. If it's second, it's going to be a long E, E-R-E, long E-R-E. If it's third or third I-O, it's going to be a short E, E-R-E. And if it's fourth, it's going to be an I, I-R-E. The next thing is you're going to add a join vowel. And sometimes I will call it a join vowel, sometimes I'll call it a key vowel, sometimes I'll call it a connector vowel. They're all the same thing. So just whichever term gets used at a particular moment, you need to know all of them. All right? So if you removed an ARE in step 1, then you add an A in step 2. If you removed a long ERE in step 1, then you add an E here. If it was a short ERE, you're going to add an I. I'm going to talk about this in just a minute, but you're going to add an I. If it was a third conjugation and you removed an ERE, then it's going to be I also. Okay, so third and third IO are both I's. IRE is also an I. Remember I said that third IO wants to do whatever fourth does if fourth is different than third. But in this case, it's not. Third, third IO, and fourth all do the same thing. They all put an I there. Okay? Still haven't talked about the IU, the U or the IU. Don't worry about it. We're going to come to that in just a minute. Okay? Then, so step 1, remove vowel RE. Step 2 is add your join vowel, A, E, or I. Then you add your ending. And your ending is going to be O if your subject is I, S if your subject is you, T if your subject is he or she or it, which we're just going to call it he for now, MUS if your subject is we, TIS if your subject is y'all, and NT if your subject is they. Now you may recognize these two endings are what we've been giving you up till now to make you pick between a singular or a plural verb. We've been having you pick between the he form of the verb or the they form of the verb. But now you'll actually be able to form the verb correctly. All right? Now, here's the deal with this alternate join vowel. The only time you use that join vowel is if your ending is NT. Every other time, that's not what I want. I want this. Every other time, you use that join vowel. Okay? So it's I before O, I before S, I before T, I before MUS, I before TIS, but U before NT. Same thing here. IO, IS, IT, IMUS, ITIS, IUNT. And it's IU because fourth is IO, IS, IT, IMUS, ITIS, IUNT. Okay? So that's the only thing you have to remember with this. It's only if your ending is NT. That is to say, only if your subject is they. Okay? So you use the one with the star only if your ending is NT. Okay? One irregularity that you need to be aware of, and it's the only one there is, by the way. All right? You do not add a join vowel before the O in first or third conjugation. Now, that's mostly invisible if you remember that your first answer is always the first principal part. Okay? We'll see that in just a minute. All right? But the rule is no join vowel before O in first or third conjugation. We've already talked about this, so don't worry about that. All right, so take a moment on a piece of paper, try to write out your forms of a moa mare, all 6 of them. Obviously, I'm going to show you the answers in a minute, so pause it while you do that. And then once you've got them written out, check your answers here. Okay, so your first principal part is your first answer. That little irregularity rule I gave you told you not to put a join vowel before O in first conjugation. So it's not A-M-A-O. You leave off the O. But if you forgot that rule, it doesn't matter. As long as you copied the first principal part, you would get it right either way. So stem is A-M, no join vowel before O in first conjugation, ending is O. Stem is A-M, join vowel is A, ending is S. Stem is AM, join vowel is A, ending is T. Stem is AM, joined vowel is A, ending is MUS. This gets really repetitive. Stem is AM, joined vowel is A, TIS is your ending. Stem is AM, joined vowel is A, ending is NT. Okay? All right, so another one. Same thing here. Sedeo, sedere. Take a moment, pause the video, write it out, and then come back and check yourself. Okay, so you're pausing it right now, and now that you're back, I am giving you the answers. Okay. First principal part is your answer. This isn't first or third conjugation, so you do put your joined vowel, so you get stem of SED, joined vowel of E, ending of O. Second's the easiest one, because you just follow all the rules exactly as they are. Stem is SED, joined vowels E, S. Stem is SED, E, T. SED, E, MUS. SED, E, TIS. SED, E, NT. Very repetitive. All right? Next one. Same deal. Pause it. Lego, legere. Pause it. Work on it. All right? So here's your answers. This is third conjugation. No joined vowel before O in first or third conjugation. But if you do your first principal part there, you'll get it right every time. So stem, leg, no joined vowel before O, ending is O. Stem is leg, joined vowel I, S. Leg, I, T. Legit. G is always hard. This is not legit. Okay. Lego, legis, legit, legimus, L-E-G-I-M-U-S, L-E-G-I-T-I-S. Now we get that alternate joined vowel. Because our ending is NT, our joined vowel changes to the other joined vowel, a U. So L-E-G-U-N-T. Yeah? All right, rinse, repeat, right? Pause it, write it out, and I'm going to go on and give you the answers. This is fourth conjugation, so you do your joined vowel, but if you just copy your first principal part, you get it anyway, right? So A-U-D-I-O, A-U-D-I-S, A-U-D-I-T, A-U-D-I-M-U-S, A-U-D-I-T-I-S. Before N-T, we need that alternate joined vowel. And for fourth conjugation, the alternate joined vowel is I-U. So audio, audis, audit, audimus, auditus, audiunt. Okay? All right, same thing. Pause it, write it out, come back and check it. All right, here we go. Facio, facere. This is third I-O, all right? Third I-O. So we get our joined vowel, F-A-C-I-O, F-A-C-I-S, F-A-C-I-T, F-A-C-I-M-U-S, F-A-C-I-T-I-S, and then it acts like a fourth. You get that alternate joined vowel. Okay? So facio, facis, facit, facimus, facitis, faciunt. Okay? And that's it. That's all there is for verbs right now. On your activities, the first three activities, your answer is going to be one English word. You're going to look at the ending on the word, O or S or T or MUS or TISNT, and you're going to say I or you or he or we or y'all or they. That's all you're going to say. Okay? Then we have some activities where you're actually conjugating the verb out in various ways. All right?